there's been a lot of heated discussion in the legislature these past few days. The government and opposition are sparring over the Separatist movement. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced he is meeting with Canada's premiers in Saskatchewan as that separation talk heats up in Western Canada. Plus, the federal Conservatives have picked Regina Capel MP Andrew Scheer to be their interim opposition leader, while Pierre Poilievre tries again to get a seat in the House of Commons. And to help us make sense of it all, we have convened our public affairs panel. Jack Saddleback is a professional speaker in Saskatoon. Dale Richardson is principal at Earnscliffe Strategies in Regina. But today, all three of us are in Saskatoon.
Yes.
And we are together in one room for the first time. And I wasn't sure what to talk about because I was like, we're just going to enjoy being in the moment and being together for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the very first time.
We're in the room, in a very small room in the Saskatoon studio. This is
I'm welcoming these
closet.
Regina folks to the lovely Saskatoon, as I'm typically in this broom closet by myself.
That's
so,
right. Yeah. Well, I did. I feel like we're coming into Jack's space here. That's right. All right. Let's talk about the thing that has been talked about the most in question period this past week. The Separatist talk, of course. It's been getting a lot of attention. Jack, just how big of a movement do you think there is here in Saskatchewan?
I think this one is a little deceptive, as certainly we want to say it's not really a big movement. It's a fringe sort of vote that's going on, a fringe sort of movement that's trying to bubble up, and it's that loud, small minority of folks, but they always seem to be loud, as these do seem to be very wild antics coming about. And for the most part, like I said, I don't want it to be popular. But it can be deceptive because these are conversations that could be definitely picking up steam, I should say, in rural places where, unfortunately, we don't really get a lot of information flowing out. That being said, we should, I think, as urban folks and folks who are wanting to get into these conversations, start having conversations with folks who are showing these sentiments within the legislative building and the talk that's happening in there. I think it's good that they're talking about it because we need to be able to shut this down and, as they say, like nip it right in the bud.
Dale, what do you think? What support is there? What is there a movement? Do you think here in Saskatchewan?
I don't think it's a movement. I think there's a certain constituency of people in the province that are, mad about things, understandably, particularly when it comes to the federal government and certain policies that have been, put on place or put in place on this province. But I think overall, I would agree with Jack. For a movement, I think you actually need to have a lot of people behind it. I don't think there's a ton of people in the province that truly want to separate, and certainly not enough to actually, pass a referendum. I think the number of signatures in this province that you need to actually trigger one is 125,000.
Correct. Yeah,
that's a lot of people, but who will need to get up off. I was going to say get up off their butts, get up off their couch and actually go and sign a petition, and that actually in 125,000 people, that's a huge number of people. So, but people who have concerns, and especially those who might not be totally in favor of separating from this province, doesn't mean that they can't be angry about things, and certainly. The last 10 years, I think there's a lot to be mad about.
That's exactly what Premier Moe has been saying, Dale. Yeah. I'm curious to how you feel about the NDP repeatedly calling on the Premier to denounce this, and the Premier has said, we're not going to accept the status quo with the federal government, but we're also don't want to leave Canada as well. Why not just come out and say, more specifically, we don't want to separate from Canada and denounce.
I've got a great government quote right here, of which the Premier is the head of the government. The government of Saskatchewan does not support separating from Canada. We believe in a strong and united Saskatchewan within a strong and united Canada.
It's clear there, yeah.
Pretty clear.
It did seem to take some nudging, though. I think at first he didn't take that stance. He kept repeating, that, we don't have to accept, it doesn't have to be either or, right?
Yeah, I think overall, I really wonder how many people are actually talking about this. Like I said in my first answer, I think there's a big difference between being mad and being understandably angry about federal government policies in the last number of years, and actually wanting to separate. And I think that it's a good example of where I think Alberta and Saskatchewan are not actually that similar. In many ways, we are similar as provinces. We have a lot in common, certainly. I think this is one where it is different because in Alberta, there truly is a large constituency that does really want to separate. And in Danielle Smith's party, there's a large wing of people who they want to press her to take this seriously. And I think that does speak to how concerned Premier Smith is in terms of that group and her party. To his credit, Premier Scott Moe, he has a pretty firm grip in terms of his leadership in the Sask party. Doesn't mean that some people aren't grumpy about things, but when it comes to separating, there certainly is not a large, there's not a large group of people in the Sask party that are pressing him to, we need to separate and do it toot sweet.
Jack, what are your thoughts on this? And I'm thinking specifically, how do you feel about the NDP just not letting this one go? They're really pushing hard on it.
What they're looking for is something that's explicit and on the record, and specifically from the Premier, because we need to be able to, as I said before, nip this in the bud, and we need leadership that is going to be clear in that stance. So right now, I mean, they're looking at the long game as well. Short game is to nip it in the bud. Long game is to gather your receipts for the next election. And the receipts are, is he going to stand up against fringe voters? Is he going to stand up against these wild antics that are creating divisiveness within our own communities? And I do agree with Dale here that certainly it is a small minority of folks that are quite rightly upset that, the politics didn't work out the way that it wanted to. But at the same time, throwing in this bombshell of a decision is not really the way to go about things. And I think we can all agree that the nature of this discussion is widely out of line of Canadian politics. This is something that is not quite rightly one that we want to see. However, I should take that back. We have seen Western separatist movements before, just this scale, and I think the consideration of what's happening down south with international politics is that we have to be a little bit more vigilant in how we have these discussions, and a little bit more vigilant within political spheres about how that is perceived on a public scale.
Well, it does seem that, again, going back to maybe decades even, it does seem like it has at least gained more momentum in the public conversation. Maybe that's because of social media. There is a petition that, albeit only has, 2,000 signatures, right?
It's nothing.
But again,
signatures.
It seems like we take a little further of a step each time, right? Each election, it does seem like it goes from just being in comment sections to now there's people actually trying to organize to have a plebiscite or a referendum. I think if
Mark Carney was elected last week on Monday and he came out and the first thing he said was, you know what, I'm going to continue doing what Justin Trudeau did, there would be thousands and thousands of more signatures than there are than 2,000. But that's not the approach to his credit, and I think we might talk about this coming up. That Prime Minister Carney has not done that. That's not been his approach. He has really tried to be the opposite of Justin Trudeau in many ways. And just coming back to the previous question about the NDP and why they want to focus on this issue, they're focusing on it because of politics. But it's an interesting question for the NDP in the sense of what are they trying to gain out of this? They're doing very well in Regina and Saskatoon. They have all but one seats in the two big cities. So on paper, they need to pick up votes outside of the cities. The majority of people that might be separatist friendly are outside of Regina and Saskatoon. So it's an interesting strategy for the NDP, and I don't quite follow it, but I'm kind of sick of talking about it already.
Well, then let's move on because you did have a good segue. You did have a good segue. I will not be bullied by Dale, I'll tell you that. But he did segue to Mark Carney, and because of all this Western separatism talk, it surely had to have influenced Mark Carney's decision to come meet the premiers here in Saskatchewan. That's going to happen in Saskatoon on June 2nd. Jack, how significant is that?
I think this is huge, actually, and a great win, not only for the province of Saskatchewan, but also for Western Canada. Here in Saskatoon, and like, I don't mean to toot our own horn up here, but like, we're a pretty jazzy city, okay? We got a great economic scene here. We got a great art scene, and if I may say, within Saskatoon as well, we seem to be leaders. Don't mean to toot that horn, but leaders when it comes to reconciliation efforts and talking with Indigenous communities about how to do this in a good, respectful, reciprocal relationship way. So within that larger sphere of Western separation talk, the Indigenous understanding and Indigenous inherent rights need to be at the forefront. And for Carney to choose here in Saskatoon with that history that I just talked about, it's a big win, I think, for all of Canada to maybe come together and recognize that everything that we're talking about is definitely interrelated. So I'm really glad and excited to see what June 2nd is going to hold for us.
They've had some pretty significant premiers meetings in the last, since Donald Trump was elected, obviously. Had to, dealing with the trade war and tariffs, and now it's following a federal election and during a time when there is a lot of discussion of Western separatism. What do you think Premier Moe will be hoping to get out of that meeting?
Well, I don't know if it's going to happen at the meeting with all the premiers, but Premier Moe's come out and said that he would love to see a series of policy items changed by the federal government, and we've gone through all of them recently. But Bill C-69, C-48, a series of federal bills fixing the Chinese tariffs on canola. Is a huge issue, particularly for this province that I think Canada-wide is not being talked enough about. But I think overall, I think Premier Moe and the rest of the premiers, I think they're looking for a true reset with the federal government, and as the Premier has said so far, it looks like that is going to be the case. I think the Prime Minister has done very well so far in terms of turning the page on the Justin Trudeau years. And, I've been thinking about it the last couple of days for me, I'm not sure about Jack or you, Peter, that I've got kind of like a PTSD thing going on where I need to change my mind to realize Justin Trudeau is not the Prime Minister anymore. And Mark Carney is not his cabinet minister or a diplomat on behalf of Trudeau. Mark Carney is the guy. He is a different man. He is going to approach things differently. So far, based on what we've seen, it's good news for this province. Yeah,
to that point, I mean, is this meeting just to get to know each other a little bit better, like you said, reset, or is it something where we expect, in the case of Premier Moe, coming in and say, we need to handle these tariffs on canola. We want more pipelines. What do you think, Jack? Is it just a meet and greet, or do you expect to see things coming out of it?
I think the meet and greet has happened in a number of instances, as Dale, you kind of alluded to, is that Carney has had some chances to get to know some of the premiers here and there. When we're looking at June 2nd, that is about a month away. As we've come to understand, with American politics, a lot can happen in a month.
That's what I was thinking too, yeah.
So exactly. I think the plan is in place to be able to talk about these tariffs, to talk about our economic well-being, to talk about even our security well-being. And that's a huge concern that has lightly been dusted in the general public sphere, but is something that we have to get a little bit more serious about because of these threats that unfortunately are coming from our own allies. So when it comes to June 2nd and that whole meeting that's going to take place, Dale, I agree that we got to get over our exes.
Yep.
I said that before.
Yeah.
And right now it's a whole new relationship, and this is a great time to be able to find out what that relationship looks like and recognize that Carney also comes in with a completely different background than Trudeau has. So this is an exciting time when we're looking at economics, and to have Saskatchewan be the meeting place, it's a big win for our province.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, Dale, to kind of have a fresh start, to see where things go from here, and it's not going to just be the same issues that obviously the Saskatchewan government had with the Trudeau government. Yeah,
no, it is exciting. But again, as I've said on this show a number of times, it's what will they actually do, right? I don't. I think that I am one of many in the province who is honestly, and I truly mean this, looking forward to the provincial government here in Saskatchewan having at least a decent working relationship with the federal government, because we have a lot of industries in this province that probably rely too much on federal government policy. But if we can get to a situation where those industries, they're unleashed, and we can create a number of jobs and really, make this province go as it should be. I mean, that's a great thing for this province. So, yeah, I'm optimistic for sure.
Well, let's talk about someone who might not be as optimistic or as friendly to Prime Minister Carney.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan's Andrew Scheer is going to be the interim Conservative leader. Pierre Poilievre says he's going to spend the summer, quote, listening carefully to people after the election loss, and there have been calls for change within the party. Jack, what do you make of Andrew Scheer being selected to lead in Parliament?
Well, girl, been there, done that. and I say that with the nicest of sentiments here. We've seen what Scheer has done. We've seen how he handles himself within this conversation with him and Carney. I suspect it's going to be a little bit different. And that I'm quite excited about. As we were sharing, like Carney certainly does come with a different background, that economic background, and seems to be focusing on how to make Canada that superpower when we're looking at the economy. And to do so, you need to be able to look at Saskatchewan. You need to be able to look at Alberta. You need to be able to look at these powerhouses that are within the energy sector. So with Scheer, he does come with a lot of experience leading the Conservative Party back in the day. Since stepping down, TBH, I haven't really looked at him since he stepped down. So, this is going to be another reintroduction to Scheer and what he is looking to do. But it's going to be a tango. Yeah.
What do you make of it, Dale? Is it just obviously Andrew Scheer is one of the most experienced Conservatives, or is it maybe a bit of a personality thing where he does kind of fit into the Pierre Poilievre shoes a little bit because he is a strong critic, he is a bit aggressive, right? He's not afraid to mix it up.
I think first and foremost, he's somebody that Poilievre trusts. He's been a close lieutenant's not really the right word, I guess, but maybe that is probably the right one. Yeah, I mean, he will be critical of the government, and I mean that's the role of the opposition is to oppose on certain things that need to be opposed. I think the real key for Mr. Scheer coming into this role for the next number of months is to not blow things up, particularly because Poilievre, he's still the leader of the party. He presumably will win this seat in Alberta, and then, at least in the House of Commons, he'll be back soon. But you really don't want to see something where Scheer, either something with himself, or he does something or says something that makes news where they don't want to make news, right? Where Poilievre has to go have a press conference outside of, in Ottawa and say, what Mr. Scheer said or did there, I'm not in support of, and that wasn't good. That's a worst case scenario. So, no, I think Mr. Scheer going in, presumably they see him as a safe pair of hands. He will be critical of the government where they want him to be, and the plan should be to keep things safe.
We got 3 minutes to put politics aside. There's one thing that unites us all, and that is complaining about our roads. Yeah. And I thought this was actually a good conversation because it is somewhat political too. I was looking at, not only do we just complain about the roads a lot, we spend a lot of money on it, right? Mm-hmm. The highways, we're spending, this budget is $777 million on highways, driver safety, and infrastructure. Yeah. Why do we still have such bad roads, Dale?
Well,
it's not a fair question, but
I mean, honestly, part of the answer is that this province is so big and so vast, and in many ways sparsely populated, right? In certain areas, that it's hard. It's just impossible for the government resources that we have in a certain year. That's a lot of money that you just said, $750 million or more. You just can't get to everything. Would everybody love to have a awesome highway or, city road beautiful? Yeah, I mean, of course, but
I should have prefaced it too for the people who didn't catch our interview. We did talk to CAA. They released their annual list of the top 10 worst roads. And what was interesting to us, Jack, is that a lot of the same roads have been on this list over and over. The worst one in Buchanan, Highway 5 at Buchanan. It just slowly worked its way up the list, and now it's the worst one. What do you make of all this?
I mean, are they competing to be the worst one? I don't know.
Well, they reached the peak.
But yeah, Dale, you're right, man. This is a big province, and I've gone all the way up north, and some of the most bumpiest roads where you feel like maybe even your filling's going to fall out with how bumpy it is. It's also a big job generator, though. So, I mean, for the most part, that's. Do
you have a favorite bad road, Jack?
Do I have a favorite bad road?
I love driving down Highway 5 and bumping along. It's the best.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of city of Saskatoon roads as well could definitely go on that list. But I love going up north. The road up to LaRange, Saskatchewan is always a fun time.
Dale?
There's actually the thing that frustrates me. There's a street in Regina near where I live, and on the one half of Regina Avenue going south, it's beautifully paved, and then there's this 2-block stretch on Argyle Street. By the way, City of Regina, if you're listening, it is the worst city street in Regina. You can't ride your bike down it because your fillings are going to fall out. Like I want to drag my kid around in a chariot at some point here. I'm not taking him to. He'll tip out, and God knows what'll happen. So, yeah.
Just look at Dooney right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, you would actually fall into a crater if you tried going down Dooney.
Guys, it's so great that we could do this in person. Thank you, as always.
What a great time, eh?
Thanks for coming to Saskatoon.
We'll be back.